Gang hits are supposed to be calculated. You know who you're targeting, where they'll be, and what they look like. You plan it out. Make sure you got the right person. But most times, shooters just don't care enough to double check. They get an address, a car description, maybe a vague location, and they go hunting. I mean, it's not like they're getting paid 100 bands to do a specific job. Sometimes they do it just out of a desire to kill. They just see what they're looking for and start shooting. And when that happens, innocent people die. These are people who had nothing to do with gangs, kept their head down, and went about their business normally, but still got caught up due to someone's stupidity. In early 2023, a Long Island community was shook when one of these poorly done gang hits took place in their own neighborhood and ruined not just the life of their innocent victim, but the lives of the shooters themselves. Kimberly Midgett was a 44-year-old mother and an elementary school teacher at a public school in the Bronx. She was divorced and had a regular custody arrangement where her daughter spent weekends with her ex-husband. Kimberly wasn't involved in anything. No criminal record, no gang ties, no street beef. She went to work, taught kids, and went home. On April 1st, 2023, at around 1:30 in the morning, Kimberly was driving her Toyota Corolla to her ex-husband's house in Hempstead, Long Island. She had her daughter in the back seat and a friend in the front passenger seat. She was dropping the kid off for the weekend. She pulled up in front, parked the car, but before they could even open the doors, a stolen black Honda Accord pulled up right next to them. Someone inside opened fire several times. Bullets tore through the Corolla's windows, hitting Kimberly in the face. Her friend took a bullet to the arm. The 10-year-old in the back seat, luckily, didn't get hit. The Honda then sped off from the scene. Neighbors called 911, but Kimberly died from her injuries. Her friend got rushed to the hospital with a gunshot wound to the arm, but survived. The daughter was physically unharmed, but she just witnessed her mother get murdered. Here's the thing though, Kimberly Midgett wasn't the intended target that day. She had zero connection to anything that would make her a gang target. The shooters, not surprisingly, got the wrong car. To understand how this happened, you need to understand the gang behind it. The Bloodhound Brims, or BHB, are a subset of the Bloods that had been running wild across Long Island since 2021. Between August of 2021 and early 2024, they were involved in 18 separate shootings, 3 armed robberies, and constant drug dealing. They were shooting at rivals' houses, robbing people, and beating people down. The gang operated like a business with a clear hierarchy. At the top was Latique Johnson, the overall leader who was locked up in federal prison in Victorville, California. But even from behind bars, he was running everything through proxies and messages. Investigators found he had over $31,000 in his prison commissary account, all gang money from the outside. Under Johnson were 2 regional bosses. Umar Barry, aka Dallo, was 27 years old and ran Nassau County out of Hempstead. Josiah Herbert, aka Loco, controlled Suffolk County. To join the gang, you had to commit shootings. If you want to move up in the ranks, you had to do a shooting. Doesn't matter if you hit anyone, doesn't matter if it's justified, just shoot at someone and you get promoted. The more shootings you do, the higher you climb. It was a meritocracy based on violence, which made these guys insanely trigger happy because every shooting was a career move. Now here's where Kimberly's story connects to all of this. On March 31st, 2023, the night before Kimberly got killed, Umar Barry was beefing with rival gang members in the area and wanted someone hit. But he didn't want to use his own guys. So Barry reached out to Josiah Herbert in neighboring Suffolk County and asked Herbert to send some lower-ranking guys over to handle a shooting. Herbert agreed and contacted a guy named Octavius Rose, telling him to put together a crew. Rose reached out to Joel Badger, who was 18 years old, and a 16-year-old kid. These two were exactly the type of guys the gang targeted for recruitment, eager to prove themselves and willing to do whatever it takes to move up. Badger and the 16-year-old hopped in a car with another gang member, Raymond Rodriguez, who was also 18. The 3 of them drove from Suffolk County over to Nassau County and met up with Barry in Hempstead. He gave them a stolen vehicle, a black Honda Accord, gave them a gun, and gave them their instructions. Go to Polk Street in Hempstead, look for a black sedan, and shoot it up. It's not known who the actual target was supposed to be. Barry clearly had beef with someone specific who drove a black sedan and lived on that street, or maybe he got bad intel. Either way, the instructions were vague as shit. Just go to Polk Street, find a black sedan, and light it up. On April 1st, 2023, at around 1:30 in the morning, Badger, the 16-year-old, and Rodriguez were cruising Polk Street in Hempstead in that stolen black Honda Accord looking for a black sedan, and they found one. Kimberly Midgett's Toyota Corolla, parked right where Barry told them to go. They had no idea who was inside, and they didn't care. Barry said black sedan on Polk Street. This was a black sedan on Polk Street, and that was all the confirmation they needed. They pulled up alongside the Corolla, and someone, probably Badger or the 16-year-old, opened fire. The bullets punched through the Corolla's windows, hitting Kimberly in the face and her friend in the arm. Kimberly was slumped over dead before the shooting even stopped. The Honda peeled out and sped off into the night. The shooters called Herbert and told him it was done. Herbert then checked with Barry to see how his guys performed, and Barry's response, according to what investigators later pieced together, was, "They did what they were supposed to do." As far as Barry was concerned, the mission was accomplished, so Herbert promoted them. Joel Badger and the 16-year-old both got moved up within the gang. It didn't matter that these goofs just murdered an innocent elementary school teacher and traumatized a 10-year-old kid for life. They got their imaginary friend group stripes. They probably felt like they were rising stars in a Fortune 500, earning respect and making a name for themselves. They had no clue they'd shot the wrong person, and honestly, even if they'd found out right away, they probably wouldn't have cared. Nassau County Police and Suffolk County Police had been investigating the Bloodhound Brims since early 2022. They knew about the gang's structure and the shootings. They'd been executing search warrants, over 100 of them, into gang members' homes, cars, and phones. They were gathering evidence and building their case, but Kimberly's murder changed everything. When gangbangers clip other gangbangers, it's one thing. Law enforcement doesn't really care that much, and the public pressure's not the same. But when an innocent schoolteacher gets murdered in front of her 10-year-old daughter in a random drive-by, that's vastly different. That gets headlines, outrage, and it gets politicians and prosecutors putting pressure on law enforcement to solve it immediately. Nassau County Police knew right away this was gang-related, and they had a pretty good idea who was responsible. But they needed evidence to connect specific people to this specific murder. The investigation kicked into overdrive as detectives started pulling every piece of evidence. They started squeezing informants and ramping up the wiretaps, and they got results. On November 2nd, 2023, 7 months after Kimberly's murder, Nassau County detectives arrested Umar Barry at his home in Hempstead. They charged him with second-degree murder, attempted murder for shooting Kimberly's friend, first-degree assault, and 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon. He was arraigned, pleaded not guilty, and the judge denied his bail. Then, in December of 2023, they arrested the 16-year-old shooter on the same charges. Because he was a juvenile, his name wasn't released to the public, but he was charged as an adult given the severity of the crimes. But that was just the beginning, because investigators kept digging and building the case. They realized this wasn't just about Kimberly's murder, it was about taking down the entire Bloodhound Brims organization with all the shootings, robberies, and violence. They wanted everyone. These goofs had doomed their whole gang over a basic-ass street beef. On February 15, 2024, Suffolk County announced a massive 103-count indictment against 31 members and associates of the Bloodhound Brims gang. The indictment covered 34 separate criminal incidents spanning from August of 2021 to May of 2023, including 18 shootings, 3 armed robberies, and 3 long-term criminal conspiracies. 8 gang members were already locked up when the indictment came down, including Barry, the 16-year-old, and Herbert. Joel Badger was arrested, Raymond Rodriguez was arrested, and Octavius Rose was arrested as well. The charges were stacked. Barry was charged not just with Kimberly's murder, but also with being part of the overall conspiracy to commit murder on behalf of the gang. Same with Herbert, Rose, Badger, Rodriguez, and the 16-year-old. They were all facing life in prison if convicted, and the evidence was overwhelming. As of now in 2026, Barry's trial still hasn't happened. He's been sitting in jail since November of 2023 waiting for his court date. Same with the 16-year-old, same with Badger, Rodriguez, Rose, Herbert, and all the others. Some of them might take plea deals and some might cooperate and testify against the others in exchange for reduced sentences. But based on the evidence the prosecutors have, most of them are looking at serious prison time. Barry specifically is facing 25 years to life on the murder charge alone, plus additional time for all the other charges. If convicted, he's probably never getting out. And all of this over what was probably the stupidest gangland beef in New York history. I genuinely do not think you can get much worse than this.